But with each new clue, we gain new insight into the physiology of dinosaurs. Far from the world of cold-blooded reptiles, it was a world filled with vitality and activity. A world of hot-blooded competition and ferocious aggression. A world where both predator and prey were superbly adapted to their surroundings. A world far different from today. "80 million years ago, the Atlantic Ocean was young, and the continents were slowly drifting apart. The central portion of what would become North America was covered by a vast inland sea. It stretched from the Gulf of Mexico to Canada. On its western shore, the Rocky Mountains were being thrust up by immense geological pressure. Humid, warm, and tropical, this lush landscape was the domain of the dinosaurs. Today, it is Teton County, Montana. Here, Jack Horner of Montana State University's Museum of the Rockies made a fabulous discovery. In 1978, at a site now called Egg Mountain, Horner and his colleagues discovered the first nearly complete dinosaur eggs ever found on the American continent. The evidence would open a whole new horizon of knowledge about dinosaurs. This rocky outcrop was once a small island, close to the shore of a great lake, not far from the salty inland sea. The lake was shallow and the island one of many. Nests containing clutches of up to 12 eggs were unearthed here. It was a unique and significant find.
No. They dry out over a period of years and they just begin to crystallize and everything is...
It might even be a hadrosaur tooth fragment.
Perhaps this was once an enormous dinosaur breeding colony. Nothing like it had been discovered since the Central Asiatic expedition to Mongolia in 1922. With 125 camels, 4,000 gallons of gasoline, 3 tons of baking flour, and a fleet of specially equipped automobiles, the expedition set out for the Gobi Desert under the leadership of Roy Chapman Andrews. They were searching for the origins of man. Instead, they stumbled across the fossils of a dinosaur called Protoceratops. Nearby was a nest of her eggs, the first ever found. The eggs would capture the imagination of the public. More than bones, they seemed to evoke an image of dinosaurs as living creatures. 50 years later, and halfway around the world, Jack Horner would unearth the eggs of an animal called Ipsilophodon.
Once the eggs are back from Egg Mountain, what I'm interested in finding out is what the animal's behavior was like. And so when we find the eggs, all we're finding is usually just the lower ends of the eggs with the top missing. And the fact that we find the lower ends of the eggs intact implies that the babies hatched out of the eggs and left the nest immediately.
Now Horner must test his theory. Trapped within, for more than 700,000 centuries, a secret is about to be coaxed from the fossil egg. At a hospital in Bozeman, Montana, a CAT scan, normally used for imaging the human body, peers deep into the ancient egg, searching for signs of an embryo. Imperceptible to the untrained eye, The CAT scan reveals what Horner is looking for: tiny fragments of bone scattered within the egg. After the egg is opened, the evidence is pieced back together. The bones tell an amazing story.
We find the ends of the bones are well formed. They have a nice smooth surface on them. It means that the animal is capable of using its limbs like an adult. This is a model of a hatchling, and basically what it is a not much larger edition of the embryo. But by looking at the skeleton of the embryo and figuring out where the muscle scars are, we can reconstruct the animal, what it looked like in life.
And so, from the fossil evidence comes intimate details of the life of a Hypsilophodon. It was an agile little creature that could leave the nest soon after birth and begin its search for food. Because their nests were found in colonies, they probably organized in groups. On the shore of the ancient lake, not far from the original nesting sites, Horner finds egg fragments of an entirely different animal.
In contrast to the Hypsilophodons, we have the other nests. Instead of finding the lower ends of the eggs intact, we have pieces of eggshell broken up in the nests. We have one of the nests that we found had the remains of 7 babies this size, together with a lot of very large eggshell fragments. And they were crushed in such a way it appeared that they were, in fact, embryonic remains. And then after reassembling the skeleton and putting some eggshell together to see what the size of the egg is, we have a wooden model of how big the egg would be. We could do that by actually measuring the curvature of the eggshell and get some general ideas as to the shape of the thing, and reconstruct the egg and reconstruct the skeleton, and we can see that the young one that we found is in fact small enough to fit into the egg. By looking at the bone structure of these particular, of the hatchlings, we can see whether or not the bone condyles are formed like the Hypsilophodons or not. And here is thigh bone from the little hatchling. And if we look at the ends of the bones, the joint ends, the condyles are not formed. In fact, it's very spongy at the ends. When we look even at the individual that's 1 meter long, the ends are still spongy. They're not smooth at the ends. What this tells us is that these bones had a very massive cartilaginous cone at the end, very thick cartilage. And we see a very similar situation in what we call altricial birds, birds that are nest-bound. It hatches out and then is brought food by the parent, and all of the energy goes into actually growing very rapidly. It doesn't have to expend energy going out to get food on its own or walking around. It just stays in the nest. The limb bones suggest that it couldn't walk very well anyway. In fact, highly unlikely that it could get out of the nest and walk at all.
Here was evidence of a gentle, caring creature. Horner named her Maiasaur, the good mother lizard. From the tiniest fragments, stunning details of social behavior and nurturing in an ancient dinosaur breeding colony. Jack Horner's work has given us a rare glimpse of life on Earth more than 70 million years ago. Here, close to the shore of the great inland sea, Hypsilophodons and Maiasaurs foraged and lived alongside a smaller, meat-eating dinosaur called Troodon. On a nearby island, eggs were laid and babies hatched. The great drama of life was played out again and again as packs of these meat eaters invaded the colony and carried off the young. The predator and the prey. The fertile wheat fields of Alberta, Canada, are scarred by a geological feature